2, 1. Welcome back to the Balance Breakdown, everybody. Myself and Harry Powell are here as always, and we're going to take you through the UFC card from this past weekend, where Edson Barboza and Sodiq Yusuff went to war in the main event. And my goodness, it was a fight to remember, Harry. We're coming at you a little bit under the weather this week, myself and Harry, but we'll try and bring you it's crazy, two of us sick at the same time in different parts of the world, but we'll try and bring that energy as best as we can right now. So Harry has the smelling salts out. He's he's keeping himself up and going with that. Harry, as I do each and every week, I'll send it over to you just for a quick little synopsis on that 11 fight card that we experienced this past weekend at the UFC Apex. An all right card, a couple of very good performances throughout, a couple of interesting stories coming out, a little bit top heavy, I would say myself. What did you think of the card?
So, okay, obviously, the main event was insane, right? Absolutely fucking nuts. I thought Viviane Araujo and Jennifer Maia was about as close as we expected it to be, right? Jennifer looked great in the pockets that we thought she would, and Vivi looked great in the pockets we thought she would. I think the grappling from Vivi, we'll talk about it, but that was much improved. Jonathan Martinez looked fantastic against Adrian Yanez. Michel Pereira did exactly what we expected him to do. Fair play to him. Very, very interesting performance by Christian Rodriguez over Cameron Saaiman. I think there's some very interesting abstract thoughts I have on Cameron Saaiman. I'll get your opinion on those. I still don't need to see Darren Elkins fight ever again. However, if they're going to book him against lads like TJ Brown, I'm happy enough to see it. Tainara Lisboa versus Oliveira was a fight that happened. Terrance McKinney, we'll talk about him, but he can't be fighting on 3 days' notice against guys that they're just being brought off the regional scene, because this is what happens, and we don't learn anything,
No, yeah, 100%.
Very impressed with Melissa Dixon to come back the way she did. Chris Gutierrez looked great against Alatengheili, and then Emily Ducote just jabbed right-handed the face of Ashley Yoder. So all in all, I mean, I think I agree with you. It was sort of a topsy-turvy card, really. I thought the first 2 fights were fine. Melissa Dixon, obviously, there's a little bit of interest there from our neck of the woods, but I just thought she absolutely fucking battered Alekseeva, and that was a good fight to watch. McKinney is going to get you out your seat with a 20-second knockout, and then Lisboa and Oliveira was a pretty horrendous fight. Darren Elkins doing Darren Elkins things, some beautiful grappling from Darren Elkins. Christian Rodriguez turning away the young star was great. Michel Pereira getting a knockout, Martinez getting a leg kick knockout was always going to bring you up. And then Viviane Araujo and Maia in such a closely contested fight before we saw just the excellence of Barboza Yusuff. So I think I agree in terms of performances. It was a top heavy card, but we learned some things.
Yeah, we absolutely did, and we're going to learn even more about the main event now. We're going to stop off at that, Harry, and look, we've kind of shared our open opinion on the fight itself. Just a mad fight. Sodiq Yusuff coming out, all guns ablazing in round 1, and it was clear, he wanted to put that pressure on Edson Barboza early to see. When you're talking about Edson Barboza, you're especially at this stage of his career, Harry, 37 years of age now, I believe. And fights like this are being lined up because the UFC want to try and give a guy like Yusuff the chance to come in and put on a good performance against Barboza, get a win possibly off his name, much loved and adored by the fans, and then look to maybe springboard a guy like Sodiq Yusuff off a win here. And Sodiq Yusuff, to me, went out there in round 1 and asked Edson Barboza, do you really still want this? Is this what you're looking for? Do you want to be taking on the young hungry lions? And Edson Barboza answered, yes, I fucking do. That's simply how I could describe it. Sketchy enough for first round, 10-8 for me. I think you don't think first round 1 was a 10-8?
About as fucking clear as day as a 10-8. I was agreeing with you. It was a sketchy round. Fucking hell. Edson Barboza, bless him. He hung on by
Yeah.
the fucking absolute skin of his teeth.
Skin of his teeth in round one. Rallied through a pretty close fight. There was an argument for a 10-8 for Barboza in round three. I didn't see that at all. But he did so well, Harry, and his experience prevailed throughout this fight. Landing a spinning wheel kick in round three or round four, I believe. I mean, yeah, we are still seeing Edson Barboza in 2023 making guys do the old stanky leg dance while landing spinning heel kicks. It was just a phenomenal performance and a very, very exciting fight. And, Yusuff, it wasn't his night, but if you're going to lose a fight like that, Harry, that's the type of fight that you want to lose. And over and back, up and down, he'll be disappointed in some ways. There's some questions around maybe why he didn't grapple a little bit more, why he didn't try to mix it up a little bit more, maybe got sucked into the striking kind of realm with Barboza wanting to prove himself there, but nonetheless, a very memorable fight that kicked that's seen us kind of put a cherry on the top of this card, I guess. Your thoughts on the actual fight itself and how it played out?
For sure. So I mean, round one was just a hellish beatdown. I think in certain moments, if Sodiq had landed one or two shots on the button, I'd have had no problem with it being stopped, right? Because when we look at it and we stack it up, Edson 37, been through a number of wars in his career, coming to the tail end of his career. And so if a referee had stepped in and saved Edson from taking insane amounts of damage, then I don't think anyone could have really argued it. But he did enough to stay in the positions. I do think that, and I'm going to contradict myself slightly here, but I do think Sodiq's choice to take Edson down after he had hurt him so much was a poor choice. And I think it was a poor choice because Edson had time to sort of wrap up the arms a little. He had time to rest a touch. We saw he tried for a couple of leg lock entries. And look, they were never going to work, right? But Sodiq has to honor them. He has to respect them. He has to defend them. He can't just continue grounding and pounding. And all that time that Edson's doing that, he's not getting hit. His brain is starting to settle and he's going to then begin to recover. And we saw what happened in round two. He came out and you can tell, right? When a fighter's rocked, you can feel it in their feet. You can see it in their feet of how they move. Edson came back out steady on his feet again. And okay, he was tired. He'd taken a beating. His face was bleeding and it had been marked up badly. But he was there and he was cerebral. And whilst I think
I think you have to give some level of kind of credit to his corner for composing. And look at an experienced fighter. Harry brings an experienced corner as well at the same time. So I think we saw kind of a couple of examples of that with Edson and kind of calming him down. There was no panic. There was no stress in the corner. They've been there before. They've been in wars before, and they just had to kind of get him back around, get him recovered, and just get him focused again. And it looked like that he did look focused going into round two. It looked like he was fully recovered as well, which is a credit to his conditioning, amongst other things as well. Just to push back a little bit on what you said, not push back, I mean, just to kind of talk about what you mentioned at the start of the first round. And, I kind of criticized Sodiq for not taking the fight down throughout this fight. And, it's kind of counterintuitive the way he did do that in the first round, which kind of cost him. So maybe I think there was two things as this fight played out. It was maybe I think he fell in love with his right hand and the fact that he had hurt Edson Barboza a little bit too much because he kept throwing that overhand right. And Edson eventually started to read that and duck in under, where that's where you want to be starting to throw maybe a few knees or maybe fake that overhand into a couple of uppercuts or something, or at least level change and just make Edson guessing. But what he did is he kind of relied a little bit of what got him to the dancing round one and what kind of, hurt Edson Barboza in round one. And then Edson, using his experience, was able to counter that and absolutely just went to town. He went to town on Sodiq Yusuff's body from rounds 2 to round 5. It was a really good recovery. But into round 2, you were saying Edson Barboza did look composed, and that's when he started looking. It was like a fresh fight for him at that stage, Harry. He was like, right, let's move on. we're down 1 round. We got to go again. We've got 5 rounds here. And he went to work.
He did indeed. And I think like we can be critical of Yusuff's fight IQ in this specific performance. But I think because I also think, just to finish off those thoughts, right? Like I think Yusuff put so much into that first round, and the takedown to me was kind of a signal of I need to slow down here. Because if I don't slow down here, I'm going to put way too much gas into this first round, just desperate to finish him. Whereas I think if Sodiq had maybe taken a step back and picked his shots a little cleaner and maybe added in, as you said, some knees, some teeps, some leg kicks, just something that to bring Edson's hands down rather than headhunting so aggressively, he might well have got Edson out of there in the first round. However, as we move through the subsequent rounds, if you're willing to stand with Edson for long enough and you're not a supremely skilled fighter, rounds 2 to 5 are what's going to happen to you. Like Edson is going to make reads. He is going to attack the body. The lightning kicks are going to come. The spinning wheel kick will make an appearance, whether it lands or doesn't land. And I was just so impressed with Edson's ability, not just composure from a fuck, I've had a horrendous first round, I've still got 4 more rounds of fighting to go, but his ability to find the body, his ability to invest in the body and still believe that there is 20 minutes of fighting that he has an ability to achieve and to invest in the body. And I think that's intelligent for 2 reasons. One, because you beat on the body of any fighter in a 5-round fight, and that's a very, very safe investment. But equally, he knows how much Yusuff put into that first round because he felt it. He literally felt it on his face, you know? And so as he then realizes that Yusuff is slightly compromised in his cardio, maybe slightly more compromised than Edson in his cardio, which is insane to think, that as Edson starts banging away at the body, he starts to slow Sodiq down vastly. The difference in movement from round 1 from Sodiq to even round 3 to Sodiq is night and day. And that is entirely, I mean, probably twofold. It's one, an adrenaline dump because Sadiq's like, how the fuck is this cunt still standing? But secondly, is just the battering of the body. And Edson pulling that right hand out of Sodiq and going with the left liver shot, going with the right body shot, going with the left kick. It's just absolutely masterful stuff. And I must say, I jumped out of my seat when he landed the spinning wheel kick. I could not fucking believe it. I could not believe that he almost finished another fella with it. Oh my Christ.
Absolutely insanity. And you know, it takes a lot to get us out of our seats, but that's definitely something that helped big time. I think the decision that Sodiq Yusuff made in round 1, Harry, was you know, a difficult one that he had to make. You know, when you get somebody hurt, do you pour it on? Do you, you know, kind of lay off a little bit and assess the situation? To his credit, you know, Barboza was hurt bad enough that he had to kind of do it. But there is a stage where you have to kind of make that realization that this fight isn't going to end. And maybe, like you said, that was the decision to take the fight down. But, you know, that's something that he's going to have to kind of incorporate into future fights. And unfortunately for Sodiq, that was the first learning curve that he made. And another night, it might have finished off another fight or two. But let's talk about why Sodiq Yusuff refused to go back to that takedown throughout the fight.
I don't know is the answer. Like, we're going to talk about ego a few times in this fight card. I think Cameron Saaiman is another one that allowed his ego to get into him, but maybe it's an injury, right? Maybe it's a pre-existing injury that we didn't know coming in, that maybe he didn't want to grapple and he was more comfortable striking. These fighters are never going in 100%, right? They're always going in carrying something, but I don't know other than that, because Edson stands with his feet close enough together that a grappler of Sodiq Yusuff's ability will be able to find a level change and will be able to find those hips, right? And like you've said many a time on these podcasts before, it's not even about finishing a takedown. It's just about threatening one. It's just about making your fighter think that that's a possibility and an option. And so he has to adapt his style in comparison to that. Like, the only thing Edson had to deal with was clinch exchanges. And he battered Sodiq Yusuff in those clinch exchanges.
And he's so good. He's so good in that area as well, Harry. You know what I mean? He feels really comfortable in those exchanges, and we've seen that time and time again. So, yeah, sorry, please continue.
No, I mean, I can't really fathom a reason, is the honest answer. My only thing I can think of is what you said already, and that's that either, if it's a pre-existing injury or whatever, but it's that Sodiq fell in love with the fact that he hurt a striker like Edson Barboza. He fell in love with the ability to jump on the microphone in the post-fight press conference or the post-fight interview and say, I just knocked out one of the greatest strikers that this division has ever, or, that MMA has ever seen, right? That's just not intelligent fighting. Like, it's just not intelligent fighting. And I think that you need this is actually where, to your point about experienced corner teams, this is where the corner team of Sodiq Yusuff potentially let him down,
100%.
where it's, instead of, allowing your fighter to continue down this certain path, right? If he goes out in round 2 and he wants to strike because he's hurt Edson so bad, fine. I got no problem with that. That's fine. You go out, you do your thing. No issues. If by round 3, well, the round 2's just happened and you got, pushed around the place a bit and your body got beat up a little bit, I might be asking, let's just see, inside the first minute, just try and find those hips, try and push him back to the fence a little bit, try and smother those hips a little bit, and let's just see what he does after that. Right? Let's just see. If he backs up, grand, we can carry on, we can keep striking. If he allows his ego in and he thinks, oh, fuck this, I've got this kid, I'm going to keep pushing forward, you take him down and you hold him there. And we didn't see it. And so, this is a thing that we don't talk often enough about, I think, which is coaches and corner teams. Don't get me wrong, some of their job is to set a game plan and to set training sessions and to set training regimens and training camps overarchingly for a fighter. But when it comes to fight night, this is a relationship, right? This is a transactional thing. It's not just shouting advice, individual technical advice from the side of the cage because you have a slightly different vantage point from your fighter. It's knowing what your fighter needs and being aware, to be cerebrally aware enough to be outside of the fight enough that when you're looking into the fight, you know what your fighter should be doing in the next 10 to 15 minutes of that fight. And so I think we have to lay some blame on the Sodiq Yusuff corner for not attempting to force more of the grappling. Because look, the other side of this, if we relate this to football, a manager can be screaming at his players to do something, and if the players don't do it, then it's nothing on the manager. You know what I mean? But if you're the corner, you have to be not just giving technical advice, but tactical advice. And I'm not sure that the Sodiq Yusuff team gave enough tactical advice in the corner.
Yeah, 100%. It's almost speaker's corner wordy, like corner and fighters and what you need to do, because something as simple as a tone of voice, or whether you're going to be shouting, whether you're going to be kind of very emotional in the corner, whether you're going to be stoic, whether you're going to be calm, it's a difficult job, but you need to kind of realize that. But I did think that Edson Barboza's corner did very, very well to kind of counteract and kind of not panic when that first round happened. And it just goes to show the experience levels that was on case there from the Barboza team. So I'm sure they'll be very happy at that. Look at the co-main event. Let's talk about that, Harry. A really technical fight here between Viviane Araujo and Jennifer Maia. Araujo taking home the decision win like Edson Barboza did in the main event. The one word that comes to mind for me when we're talking about this fight is just an unbelievable level of respect that these two women had for one another. And I think it showcased throughout the fight, which didn't really make it for a super exciting fight, but it's understandable given what's at stake. And, Jennifer Maia is going back in there as a former title challenger. Viviane Araujo coming in there with the opportunity to kind of, make a statement and stake her claim in the flyweight division. Both of these women are coming towards the maybe the tail end of their careers as well. And, without trying to sound too harsh, none really would set tongues wagging by either performance, but it was still a good win against a difficult opponent for Viviane Araujo, and she'll get to move on and progress and build herself in the division. What did you see in the fight yourself?
Rounds 1 and rounds 3 were just really close rounds to score, like really, really close rounds to score. I think you sort of hit the nail on respect, right? But I also think the magnitude of the fight for both of them was really telling. Because one of the things I noted in my notes is I would have liked to have seen just a little bit more from Viviane Araujo when she had the back for such a significant period of that second round, because it was obvious that was going to Viviane Araujo in terms of the actual scoring. But in terms of looking for finishes and really landing some damage that could have allowed her to build some momentum in the third round, I just didn't get enough of it. And genuinely, I think it's because Viviane realized she had to hold that position, and this was going to be the round that was cemented because it was such a close round in the first. And she was ready for a close fight. She was ready for a technical fight. And when she had such a dominant position, she wanted to maintain that position because she knew the stakes of the fight in and of itself. I also think Jennifer Maia is just a fighter that's actually really hard to look good against. Really, really hard to look good against. Really good in fighting, knows how to slip a shot and land a shot, catches kicks well, can grapple, really, really good from top. We saw the last 30 seconds of the third round. She's shooting up arm bars and she's looking for this and she's looking for that. So she's good off her back as well. Like,
do you think that should have came a little bit sooner in the fight for Jennifer Maia? Maybe trying to initiate her grappling a little bit more. It's funny when I've been looking at Jennifer Maia over her last couple of fights, Harry, it's kind of, I have the same kind of opinions about her and how she's developed her style to a person who's exactly named, and that's Damian Maia, who is this world-class grappler. And that's what Jennifer Maia came into the sport as well, as a really top-level grappler and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu artist, who has somewhat fallen in love with her striking now and kind of abandoned her grappling game altogether. Like maybe not abandoned it altogether, but definitely doesn't pull it out and use it as much as maybe she should have, in my opinion, at the very least.
Yeah, I think she's kind of a victim of the MMA meta right now, which is that you kind of have to know everything. And it's one of those things, like at the minute I'm coaching some uni students, right? And there's a couple of people in there who are really, really good athletes. And you can see in the room that they progress or they succeed, quote unquote, really quickly against non-athletic people, right? But if I was to be able to roll the clock 5 years forward, if those athletes are still just using their athleticism, then those people that have been focusing on details and technical ability and skill acquisition are going to be putting them through the ground. And so I think for Jennifer Maia, I was about to call her Damien then, when coming for Jennifer Maia, it's one of those things where you kind of have to forget the grappling for a while. And you have to get really, really good at striking so that people will respect the grappling or respect the striking enough that you can utilize the grappling and really put it together. So then you have a question of age and time and mat time and injuries and all that stuff. And unfortunately for Jennifer Maia, she came to the sport too late for her to be able to put everything together and then add the grappling back in, right? Now, to the point about the fight IQ, it's difficult. You have a really, really close first round on the feet with Viviane Araujo. The second round, 3.5 minutes of it, you got your back taken, you're defending chokes, you're defending shots. In that third round, do you trust the grappling enough to go in and potentially get reversed? I'm not sure you do, right? Because we saw in that last 30 seconds at the grappling, she ended up on bottom. And now okay, she's throwing up arm bars, but like I think that's maybe a speaker's corner of itself as well, is like the late bloomer and what's the perfect time to start. And we've kind of done it before, but I agree with you 100%. If you're a world-class grappler, you should be grappling. But it's tough in modern mixed martial arts. It's really tough. Really,
It
really.
is. And even like to kind of like continue the argument as well, in that you wouldn't be expecting someone like Jennifer Maia to get her back taken so easily and stuff like that as well. And maybe that's just a lack of focus on that side of things, because those fundamentals are always there for her. But you need to be always doing those drilling and the drills. You need to be always incorporating every single thing. But yeah, interesting. It's just something I thought I was curious to hear your opinion on. But look, nonetheless, it was Viviane Araujo that got the win. look, we normally talk about what's next, and I must go back and ask you maybe what we think is. Maybe we'll talk about what's next for everybody at the end. Let's talk about the fights first. Let's talk about what's next for everybody at the end. We shall move on to Jonathan Martinez versus Adrian Yanez. Whew, yeah, this was a good fight on paper between two really, really solid bantamweights. And, I was a big high and a big fan of Adrian Yanez. Yanez. I need to get that right. Who went 1-0-1 as with the new name. Went out there. Look at Harry, we had cited this, and we mentioned it on the preview show that a big key to victory here was the leg kick attacks of Jonathan Martinez. I cited the wide, heavy leg stance of Adrian Yanez, and that's exactly what he did. He absolutely destroyed the lead leg with inside leg kicks. It was unbelievable. And Jonathan Martinez, Harry, look, it was always a decent fighter, but he's really a force to be reckoned with and in the bantamweight. And since moving down there, he's looked exceptional. And, you're not a proponent of weight cutting, and that's totally fine. But we've got to be talking about this being a good move and a right decision that Jonathan Martinez has made at this stage of in his career. He's gone 6-0, I believe, now, and since going down to bantamweight, 5 or 6 off the top of my head. And his win raises a couple of questions for Adrian Yanez, excuse me. I'm going to be getting that wrong forever, but I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are.
Just look, there's something, right, where when a specific fighter has like a one thing or a dexterity and a leaning towards a specific thing, it can become just an absolute superpower, right? If we said on paper leg kicks versus boxing, you're going to say boxing wins, right? Like 9 times out of 10. If you put Adrian Yanez versus with those hands and that slipping and that boxing and that fluidity and the hard hitting and the beautiful leaping left hooks and all of that stuff, if you say that versus leg kicks, 9 times out of 10, I'm picking boxing, right? Because immediately impactful strikes, immediately impactful head strikes, you're more willing to wobble your man if you crack him in the jaw than you are if you to kick his leg, whatever. But when we talk about Jonathan Martinez, the whip and the turn in his hip and the rotation in his core is just something different, right? From the second kick he landed, the first one he landed, Yanez was able to steel man it, right? Was able to look at like, I'm grand. That didn't fucking even slightly hurt. And then the second one, he was like, oh, bollocks, I can't take any more of these. I really can't. Now,
and sometimes with those kicks, it's like, and I haven't taken too many like low calf kicks. So I'm glad when I was doing a bit of training and fighting that calf kicks weren't a thing, to be honest. So it was more of a focus of above the knee on the thigh, and but that's what Jonathan Martinez was doing as well. He was targeting both the upper thigh and the calf as well. So you don't have to just think about what area it's going in. He has just developed his skill set and his techniques to actually throw leg kicks in variation, which is like almost the next level thing again when we're talking about leg kicks really in mixed martial arts.
So I think there's 2 elements to the leg kick that impressed me the most, right? The first is when he threw them. And as you say, the second is how he threw them, right? Because at the end of it, Yanez was holding his knee, right? It was the knee that buckled. So what Jonathan Martinez was doing is he's weakening the ligaments and the joints and the muscles around the knee. And then he definitely slams a few kicks immediately into the side of the knee. I would be so interested to know specifically if there's any ligament damage inside the knee for Adrian Yanez coming out of that fight. Because if you've got a fella in Jonathan Martinez that can tear LCLs, MCLs, ACLs with kicks, Jesus Christ, that's insane. Because the second part of the impressive nature is anytime Yanez tried to step in, there was a low kick waiting for him. Martinez knew that there was going to be long combinations coming at his head. And so he made sure when those combinations ended, he lands with a leg kick. If he can't catch him on the way in, he catches him on the way out. And what that started to do for Yanez through the first round was to make him second guess coming in as explosively, right? It was making him throw with more vigor. It was making him throw with sort of these more bad intentions to try to force some respect out of Martinez. But with those bad intentions, Martinez was able to read the footwork well and keep slamming leg kicks into him. I also thought it was very impressive how he would fake leg kicks, force Yanez to pick his leg up and then crack him in the leg when it was in midair. If you've never taken one of those kicks, from my kickboxing experience, I can tell you I have taken plenty of those kicks. They hurt way more when your leg is in the air because you have to put your leg back down, right? And generally when it cracks and the pain comes in, you automatically put your leg down. And because your leg is heavy, there's even more shooting pains that run up through your leg, right? So taking one in that situation is horrendous. And when we saw Yanez drop for the first time, properly drop, it was exactly that shot. Martinez lands one, then he fakes another. Yanez picks his leg up and he cracks him in the inside of the knee. And as Yanez puts his foot down, his leg buckles and he sits, right? But the other thing that's very impressive and is very mature for Jonathan Martinez is we're not just looking at a guy purely spamming leg kicks. Because when he got Yanez really worried about the leg, he just started jabbing him in the face.
100%.
And he started landing shots. He started going to the body. He'd throw a teep in the middle. He'd throw a teep up to the chin. And then he's like, oh, it's not just leg kicks, big man. I've just got you worried about this. Now that I know you can't stand on your left leg, I'm now going to beat the actual shit out of you. And by the end of it, Yanez just had no idea what was coming. He retreated himself to the cage. He was in sort of an awkward Philly shell type position with his knee picked up to try and protect the inside of his knee. And Yanez just absolutely decimated him. Just a masterful performance, an absolutely masterful performance. Brilliant stuff.
Absolutely. The fact I feel that it was Yanez was coming in against the southpaw didn't really help him, and he couldn't establish his jab or get settled in. But like you said, once that leg kick immediately impacted him, I don't think people realize how much it impacts you as a fighter, because how much you're dependent on everything that which comes from your leg strength, your movement, your power, everything comes from there. And then when it's hurting you, you're immediately thinking about it. And when you're thinking about that, you're not thinking about anything else. And it was just a slow destruction, really. I mean, a quick but slow destruction. I mean, impactfully, we had an immediate reaction from Yanez, and he did well to kind of fight his way through into the second round. But the writing was on the wall pretty early here, and an excellent performance from Jonathan Martinez. Like I said, we'll talk about what's next for him at the end. We shall move on to Michel Pereira and his middleweight debut against Andre Petroski, who came in at short notice. And not too much to break down here, Harry. I mean, number one, how the hell did Michel Pereira make 170 pounds is the first question I had. The guy looked like a 205er in there on Saturday night at middleweight. And this guy, if he's matched up correctly over the next couple of fights, could be well in line to become a contender at 185. Look, he's going to face much more difficult competition. Obviously, Petroski coming in at short notice. We can't really criticize all too much, but this fight was over before it even began. A couple of brief exchanges followed by the first major exchange, which was a right straight, which put Petroski down on his back, and it was the beginning of the end. Pereira went on to ground and pound, and looked frightening and doing it too, Harry, to be honest, didn't he?
Look, we've talked about outside foot battles before, right, when you're facing opposite stances. And Michel Pereira knew that he'd won the outside foot battle because he stomped on Andre Petroski's foot. And it was just a right hand from hell. And I mean, I think you broke it down immediately, right? Like we've said multiple times before, and we will continue to say that if you win the outside foot battle when you're fighting an opposite side striker, you're going to start to win the exchanges. And Michel Pereira only needed one, right? I have the guy who I want, Michel Pereira, to fight next. And like I said, we'll do it at the end. But you are completely right. We could be building a guy at 185 in Michel Pereira who leaps into a title shot way quicker than anyone else expects, because he's already got a name. He's already a fan favorite. And for sure, we could see Michel Pereira doing the things without a shadow of a doubt.
It beggars belief why the decision wasn't made by him to make this move sooner. Why do fighters decide to fight down? Well,
Right.
I think, in my opinion, it's they want to be a bully. They want to be a bully in there, and they feel comfortable and they feel that it's a mental advantage to be the naturally bigger sized guy once all the rehydration has taken place. But how much else? It's that fine balance. Is that how much is that taken out of you? And I just wonder. This was his eureka moment. This was like, yeah, I'm going to be staying at 185 for the rest of my career, and I think it's ultimately the exact choice he should be making. And I'm almost upset that he didn't make it sooner, Harry, to be honest.
Sure, but like I do think there's like as you said, there's the bully thing, but I also think there's just an inherent nature to MMA that's what do you weigh? You weigh about 85 kilos. Cool, you're a 155er, and it's like, wait, what? Like, what are we talking about? Like, one of the things in grappling that I find is so interesting is it's almost the opposite, right? It's almost the opposite in grappling. It's you just get as massive as possible. Just get as fucking huge as possible and go out and compete. Whereas in MMA, it seems like it's the opposite, right? Where if you're, let's say, so I weigh 66 kilos, right? If I'm 66 kilos and I was going into fight, I'd be told, cool, you're a 57 kilo fighter. And I'd be looking at cutting down to 57 kilos to make 125. Like, that's not fun. Like, I don't want to do that. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not. But if I was an MMA fighter, that's exactly what would be expected of me. If I was to go in, what am I, 5'7", right? Like if I'm 5'7", 66 kilos, and I walk in 135 and it's fucking Pedro Munoz that I'm standing in front of, it's not the same human. You know what I mean? Like, and so that inherent nature inside the sport, I think, almost forces many fighters to go in and cut that weight because then they want to go to the elite of the division, which is exactly what every single fighter thinks that they can do. They kind of need to play by these inherent unwritten rules, and that's you got to cut the weight. And it's not until you see one of these anomalies like a Michel Pereira, who was already absolutely fucking monstrously big for the weight class, that you can kind of turn your head a little bit and be like, oh, wait, actually, maybe you don't need to do this as much.
Exactly. But look at going in there and looking even as big as he did at 185
Insane.
as well. It's
Insane.
crazy, man. It's crazy. Look at it. We will talk about what's next. We shall move on to Christian Rodriguez versus Cameron Saaiman in the in the bantamweight division, if you want to call it that. It wasn't the bantamweight division for Christian Rodriguez. And you said we have, like, for anyone who's listening, Harry and I, we don't share our thoughts or opinions before we come on. Harry said it was an ego thing, and I'm going to see if I'm on the same lines. And because I kind of agree, and I feel that the worst decision that Cameron Saaiman made in this fight was actually taking the fight, to be honest. I think when a guy comes in 4 pounds over, yeah, okay, you want to get paid, yeah, you've done the preparation, but there is a lot at stake here, and I feel by taking the fight, he already put himself at a very, very big disadvantage. And you could see some of the struggles throughout the fight as well, Harry, with the size difference. And, it's an issue that we can talk about maybe a little bit after it. But, you said it was an ego thing for Cameron Saaiman. Maybe that was due to some of the decisions that he made throughout the fight as well. Please share your thoughts, sir.
Yeah, so I think there's twofold, right? Obviously, I'm not a man that likes weight cutting. That's relatively open now to the public. If you want to go find my views, you can find them. But in the same vein, when you sign a professional contract at a specific weight limit, it is your duty by a contract for you to make that weight limit. And when, if a fighter comes in and they're 200 grams overweight, sure. Sometimes these things happen in MMA. You maybe just undercut your weight cut just a tiny bit and you're 200 grams over. Fine, you're 200 grams. But 4 kilos is an incredible amount of weight to be over. An absolutely incredible amount of weight to be over. And it's absolutely unprofessional.
Very unprofessional and almost disgraceful in a way to do that. And look, I agree with what you said as well, but I'm definitely a hard line on that. If you agree to the contracted weight, you've got to make it. And, it's an awful pity because he's a really good fighter, really effective. And we saw that against Rahul Rosas Jr., a fight where he also missed weight. So, look, this is the third time. His original appearance at Dana White's Contender Series, he missed weight, he won the fight, and was still lucky enough to get a contract, to be honest. I feel if you miss weight on Dana White's Contender Series, you shouldn't get a contract. To be, if I'm being completely honest. But look, that's the decision they made. But now we have 2 fights that he's missed weight in a row. And it's not like, let's see if he can get his weight kind of correct moving forward. I feel when you miss that badly, you almost have to move up in weight. He's almost got to take his next fight at 145. Is it a thing with a nutritionist? Can he make an improvement? Does he deserve one more shot? Maybe he does, but like another weight miss now, it doesn't seem that the UFC wants to punish these weight misses though either. You know, that's another problem as well. You know, we saw Wonder Boy Thompson actually coming out looking more like a villain because he didn't take a fight because a guy missed by so much weight. And now we're seeing that the reaction that comes from that doesn't make Cameron Simon's decision not to take this fight any easier. Because, you know, he's like, oh, yeah, I don't want to rub up the UFC the wrong way, because it's the strange reality that exists is that you'll be made out to be the enemy by the UFC if you're not taking fights like this. And they tried to do it with Wonder Boy, and that sets the precedent for other fighters that's coming up as well, and maybe puts the spotlight on them if they refuse. Now, Cameron Saaiman was probably a confident young man, but the decision that he made helped forged the path in him losing his undefeated streak, you know. And there was another couple of things as well, but there's always an asterisk. You know, I devalue the win and I wouldn't value the loss because of the weight miss solely, and that's an issue that Christian Rodriguez has. How big of a factor do you feel it had in the actual fight itself, Harry?
It's hard to say. I
It
think
is.
Cameron Saaiman did more technically and tactically to throw the fight away than the weight miss. Maybe he brought the weight miss into the fight and wanted to punish Christian Rodriguez for that weight miss. But to me, it started in the very first round. Christian Rodriguez throws a spinning back fist and lands. Cameron Saaiman immediately tries to throw a spinning back fist back and lands, fails, gets taken down, and then ends Benadas. Now, there's a couple of situations here where Cameron Saaiman gives up Darcy's and then does a great job at defending them, does a great job at reversing them, no problem. But we can't be giving up Darcy's. We can't be giving up bottom position, and we can't be allowing our ego to let these sorts of situations come out. I felt like he was more focused on landing damage than he was to defending his own chin. I thought his chin was far too available in this specific fight. And look, it was just a bit too sloppy from Cameron Saaiman here. And I think this is a fantastic, I was actually talking to Spencer, who's interviewed Cameron Saaiman a few times, and this is a fantastic learning fight for Cameron Saaiman on both fronts. The first front is you really don't take this fight like. If your man has missed weight by 4 kilos, sorry, you don't take the fight. You just don't, right? If your man comes in and starts throwing spinning back fists and this and that and the next thing, at 22 years of age, you're going to be able to have to compartmentalize that this isn't about he tags me, I tag him. This is 15 minutes of tactical, technical warfare, right? And if you go chasing your opponent, if you go chasing a get back, the likelihood is you're not going to find it. If we scroll all the way back to the start of this conversation, at no point in that first round was Edson clipped and was looking, oh, fuck, I must clip him with exactly the same shot. Never, not once. Edson was just secure in the fact that he had to survive in that first round. And after his survival, he was like, cool, I'll just start doing my thing, I suppose. And it won him the fight. And so this will be, hopefully, a cornerstone in Cameron Saaiman's career where he can look back and learn from the twofold lessons that come from it. One, allow your ego to come into a certain point, but stick to a game plan. And secondarily, if a fighter comes in 4 kilos heavy, you absolutely don't take that fight.
Yeah, couldn't agree more, really. And I don't think there's any ifs, ands, or buts. And it's a shame because we don't get a true kind of gauge on either fighter here, to be honest. And it was a very good matchup on paper and one that I was looking forward to. And the weight miss, just poured cold water on it for me, because it's a tainted win and it's a tainted loss, and we move on and look at, hopefully there will be lessons learned from both sides, to be real. And Christian Rodriguez has a big decision to make for his next fight, and whether he decides to switch things up or whether he decides to move up and wait. You have one more thing you want to say?
Yeah, like I don't think this is a decision. If I'm
You
really
think
honest,
you've got to go up? Yeah, you think you've got to go up, don't you?
like I'm
Yeah.
just looking at his record, right? His first fight was a catch weight at 140, his pro debut. His second fight was 135. Grand, he made it, as far as we're aware. Next one's 145. That's 10 pounds up. Next one's a catch weight 140. The one that he just before he got the Dana White Contender Series was 135. He makes it. Misses 3 pounds. 3 pounds he misses 135 by. His next one is at a 150 catch weight. Yeah. Then he comes in 145 against Jonathan Pierce. Almost misses. Goes at 146 on the dot, right? Almost misses the 146. Then we come in, he blows weight by a couple at just like 1 pound for 135. Fine. Sorry, he doesn't blow weight. He makes weight for 135, and then blows weight by 1.5 pounds for Rosas Jr., and then absolutely destroys the weight by 4 pounds for this one. And yeah, it shouldn't even be a question. Like the commission, if nothing more, should come in and say, you can't make 135 now. You've been fighting all over the shop, all the way up to 150, all the way down to 135. Like, we can't be doing this. The middle ground is 145, and that should be a weight class.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Let's move on to Darren Elkins versus TJ Brown, downtown TJ Brown. Look at you shared your thoughts on Darren Elkins. I mean, what, we're 45 minutes in. We can blast through most of the rest of these fights now as well. Nothing all too much happened in any of these. And this one was just, your typical Darren Elkins performance. Gets the submission via rear naked choke, just grinds on TJ Brown throughout the fight. And you said something at the start of this podcast. It was like, if we're going to match up Darren Elkins with guys like this, I'm all for it. And that's the way I feel as well. We can't be throwing this guy to the wolves. He's too tough for his own good. Still going out there and taking damage and getting wins like this as well. So, I mean, the fight itself, it was just your typical kind of Darren Elkins fight. And, TJ Brown, he was game for a while, but just got smothered in the end.
I agree. Like, Darren Elkins is a really underrated grappler. Really, really underrated grappler. And TJ Brown showed some really, really excellent wrestle ups and some really, really excellent grappling of his own. But Darren Elkins was just a step behind, a step in front of all of it. Sorry. And he almost got the finish in the first round with a rear naked. Didn't quite get it. Was grindy in the second round. And then the third round just managed to find his back and finish him. And look, like I said at the start, like if we want to give Darren Elkins these kind of guys, honestly, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that, as long as we're not looking at, if we see him booked with Nathaniel Wood or Lerone Murphy or whatever, I don't want to see any of that. Like, I don't want to see any of that whatsoever. But if we see him with the level just underneath that, which is your TJ Browns and everything else, then that's fine. If it was a competitive fight, and I got no problem with that, as long as he's in competitive fights at his age, at his career trajectory, that's fine. But I don't need to see some up and coming hungry 145er that's being looked to build a name off the damage. I don't need to see it.
100%. Yeah, couldn't agree more with that. Obviously, we'll talk a little bit about what's next for him at the end. Moving on to the women's 135-pound division, a division, Harry, that's been left in somewhat limbo now ever since Amanda Nunes's retirement from the sport. Tainara Lisboa went out and won a unanimous decision. A lot of Brazil versus Brazil action on the card. Ravina Oliveira was the person who was on the losing end of the night. Not a great fight, really, to be honest, and not much to discuss with this either. To be fair, your thoughts, please.
Pretty horrid stuff. Pretty horrid stuff. Both ladies should have finished the fight with some really, really dominant positions that neither of them did anything with. Yeah, not a great fight at all, really. What's next for both of them is, I'll tell you now, they go back to the gym and they get good at fighting, and then we'll see them again. Yeah.
But boom, Terrance McKinney. I mean, went out there, got a 20-second KO win.
Yeah.
And the only question that we have is, what do we do with Terrance McKinney? There's fuck all to break down on this fight. He just went in there and he trucked a guy that was not as good as him on short notice. That's why he took the fight. Fair play. He's getting in there short notice. He's getting paid. But, we've got to get Terrance McKinney out of kind of combat limbo now, because we're either going to give him a push or we're going to either have him coming in and taking these short notice fights against guys that he's going to beat where we're not going to learn anything. What's your opinion on the fight itself and everything that happened in and around it and after it too?
I mean, I don't really have an opinion on the fight because nothing happened. Like, he came in with a guy that shouldn't be in there with him, and he got sparked. Like, fine, no problem. The actual setup to the knee was really nice. He like faked the right hand, turned it into a collar tie, and slammed Marotte down into the knee. Cool, no problem. I have a name for Terrance McKinney that we'll get to, right? But I think, look, Terrance McKinney versus Drew Dober was a tough fight, and we'll look back on that and we'll say whatever. But I feel like now, if you're gonna allow Terrance McKinney the best ability to go and try and actually be the best that he can be in the division, we have to match him correctly, and that can't be these. Oh, we've got a guy that you're absolutely going to smoke, but he needs a fight on 6 days' notice. What do you reckon? And Terrance will say, yeah, sure, because why wouldn't he? It's a payday that's essentially free. He's not going to take any damage, and he's going to get a highlight reel finish. Like, that's just mega bucks for somebody like Terrance McKinney. And I think he got a bonus as well, right? Did he get a bonus? I'm just going to pull up the card 1 second. He did not get a bonus.
He didn't get a bonus, and rightly so as well. I'll go through the bonuses at the end of the card breakdown before we do the matchmaking. But yeah, like I'm completely with you where it's like I don't really want to see Terrance McKinney in these kind of fights. I'm interested to see, can he learn, can he develop, and can he kind of match it up with some higher level opponents in the lightweight division. That he's going to go out there and beat a guy like that. So we need to kind of get things moving with Terrance McKinney now, I would say. Look at someone who did get things moving. That was Melissa Dixon, who climbed to 6-0, Harry. Very very performance against Irina Alekseeva in the women's 135-pound division. She took home a unanimous decision in a pretty one-sided fight, pretty easy to get right on the judges' scorecards. And at 6-0, showing a little bit of promise, but obviously we're going to cool the jets on the excitement just yet. But she passed a few tests last Saturday night. She ticked off a couple of boxes, Harry, and you were impressed by her performance.
Yeah, really nice jabbing, really nice right hands, some really solid grappling. Was able to land lots and lots of damage from her grappling situations. So all thumbs up from me. She recovered from getting knocked down early. Lots of blood coming out of her, but fair play to her. She stuck in and did exactly what she needed to do. So yeah, I absolutely cannot take anything away from her, and I'm excited to see her fight next. No problem.
Yeah, perfect. Awesome. On to Chris Gutierrez versus Alatengheili. Another fight that was kind of rescheduled and rebooked for this card in the men's 135-pound division. A good unanimous decision win over Alatengheili for Chris Gutierrez, but I think this is a fight he could have gotten out of there, and I think maybe looking back he should have, and was probably disappointed that he didn't.
I agree on all of the things. Absolutely agree. I think that this is absolutely a fight that he should have really gotten Alatengheili out of there. I think at this point, Alatengheili is not the fighter that we all sort of really enjoyed when he first came in, which was the all-action guy. I think he's a little bit more gun-shy now than he has been. And so, a guy of Chris Gutierrez's nature and his fighting ability, I expected a finish, and I'm not upset I didn't get one. That's absolutely the wrong thing, but I expected a finish.
Yeah, I did too. Look at and to Alatengheili's defense, he took a big jump up in class in comparison to the fighters he had taken on previously. But sometimes you either sink or swim, or he really kind of sank in this fight, and he'll be looking to rebound. Maybe look to try and get on that proposed Shanghai card. It'll be interesting to see if he does. Last but not least, Ducote versus Ashley Yoder was a fight that happened that kicked us off. I don't know whether Emily Ducote was hiding razor blades in some of her equipment because she opened up a couple of nasty ass cuts over Ashley Yoder and took home a unanimous decision win. Harry, what did you think of the fight and the performance?
Emily Ducote is one of those where she could be something, and I just don't know whether she will be. Age isn't exactly on her side. If I remember rightly, I could be wrong. But I don't think age is on her side. But she's a tidy fighter, a solid fighter. She reminds me slightly of a reincarnation of JJ Aldrich, right? Where she has some really solid and really nice fundamentals that I really, really appreciate. Whether she can put it all together and really make a run at making something in this division, I'm not sure. But I enjoy watching her fight. She bangs the body well. She's got a lovely jab, a clean, straight right hand. Yeah, I can't argue with any of it.
Yep, absolutely. Let's get into it. Winners and losers. Let's match them up. Let's start up at the very top, Harry. Obviously, Edson Barboza, who took the win over Sodiq Yusuff. Who do you want to see Edson Barboza in there next with? And the same for Sodiq Yusuff as well.
So I think it's very difficult for Edson because what are we going to do now? You know, are we going to ask Edson to go in and fight a guy that is up in the rankings, right? Are we really expecting him to go out and I don't know is the honest answer. I really don't know. I think the name, and this is entirely dependent on what he's doing, but the name I'm comfortable giving Edson Barboza is Josh Emmett.
Yeah, I don't argue that. I thought you were going to match him down. That would be matching him up, and I think he at least deserves an upward matchup in that division. And yeah, I like the Josh Emmett fight.
Sodiq Yusuff, the answer is Lerone Murphy for me.
Mm-hmm. I love it. Brilliant stuff. Double thumbs up there from me on both of those. Co-main event, Viviane Araujo. Who would you like to see her fight next, Harry?
I genuinely don't know what to do with Viviane Araujo because I feel like in some ways you absolutely have to push her now, right? Because if you don't push her now, the age is just not on her side, right? And I feel like if we don't push her now, we're going to struggle. I don't feel comfortable doing the Erin Blanchfield test because if she loses the Erin Blanchfield test, it's going to be really, really difficult for her to build back from that Erin Blanchfield loss if she loses. Do we want to do Tyler Santos? Maybe, but Tyler Santos is coming off 2 losses. Like the name I had, which is a kind of a strange one, really, but is to go Caitlin Chookagian. Because Caitlin Chookagian's like the rung underneath what used to be the second place fighter. And if Vivi can get through Caitlin Chookagian, then okay, cool. Well, at that point, I'd hope that something at the top has been sorted between Valentina, Alexa, and or Erin Blanchfield and Manon Fiorot. Because I do feel Manon Fiorot and Erin Blanchfield have done more than enough to be in and around that very, very top conversation for the next title shot. Whereas I think Viviane Araujo has to do a little bit more.
Yeah, you want to give her a challenge, Caitlin Chookagian, sorry, excuse me. Would be the challenge. You want to give her maybe a chance to move up the rankings in a more winnable fight. You could look at Lauren Murphy perhaps and the way that's ranked too. You know, I think that would be a winnable fight for her as well. But like I said, she ain't got that much time left, so we got to get moving. Jennifer Maia, what's next for her, Harry?
This might be a wild one, given that she's coming off a loss. But what about Maycee Barber?
Yeah, I don't know. Maycee Barber will want to fight someone coming off of a loss, and you know that'd be well within her rights. I don't mind the fight. Maycee Barber mightn't have been a bad one for Viviane Araujo either, to be honest. You know, that'd be more one I'd be a little bit more.
I do feel like for Maycee Barber though, I kind of want to keep her away. I kind of want her to elevate herself to that same standing. Whereas if we do Viviane Araujo versus Maycee Barber and Maycee loses, then Maycee's like, again, another couple of rungs down. I'm not sure that a win over Maycee Barber really elevates Viviane Araujo up into that position. Whereas Macy Barber, if she goes out and beats Jennifer Maia, she's beating the next title challenger. What more? What more do you want me to do? Sort of thing. Forget, because at the end of the day, the rankings don't mean anything as much anymore. Whereas if Macy can jump on and say, "I've just smashed up an ex-title challenger," fuck that Blanchfield woman. Give me the, you know what I mean? Like,
I'm in. You sold me on it. I think that there's no rush also with Macy Barber either. She has to let things get settled up at the top of the division. She's, the way things are shaping up at the minute, you've got Shevchenko, Blanchfield, Firo, and obviously the champion Alexa Grasso. So it's kind of a roadblock up there at the top. So yeah, kind of knocking off another few former contenders, former challengers might be the best route forward. Jonathan Martinez and Adrian Yanez.
Pedro Munoz for Jonathan Martinez.
Again, did he fight them all right? Or no, that was I'm getting Pedro Munoz mixed up with somebody. Apologies.
For Adrian Yanez, sorry. I've kind of given away who I think though. For Adrian Yanez, I mean, you've got to take a step back, right? Absolutely have to take a step back. And I think the answer is it's tough. Like, it's really tough because it's 2 TKO losses in his last 2, right? So you kind of have to dial him back aggressively. But who do you dial him back against? I don't know. How far do you go back? I don't know. I think for Adrian Yanez, we know that he is a very, very, very good fighter, right? There's certainly nothing there. Honestly, I don't know who you do for Adrian Yanez next. I do not know.
Someone unranked. That's
right. And
that's
like
what we got.
The names I chuck out that are unranked is Kyler Phillips is on a good run. Could we do Kyler Phillips, Adrian Yanez? What about Montel Jackson? Jackson looking for a good opponent, right? If we really want to go, we could use one of the Basharat brothers. If we really wanted to test one of the Basharat brothers, obviously Javid has a fight booked already, but you know what I mean, right? Like there's
of course
names we could do there.
100%. I'm with you all the way. Christian Rodriguez and Cameron Saaiman.
Michel Pereira first, right?
Oh, Michel Pereira, excuse me. Sorry.
Michel Pereira is Bo Nickel. If not Bo Nickel, my second name, because I thought you were going to hate Bo Nickel. The second
I don't really like it for him. I think it's a horrible stylistic matchup, and you're getting rid of all of that hype immediately with him. But go ahead.
If he batters Bo Nickel.
Yeah. I mean,
the second name, though, the second name is Caio Bahia.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I like that one as well. I don't hate the Bo Nickel fight, but I don't think they'll do that to Bo Nickel. Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I like that. And Andrei Petroski, I mean, whoever. He can fight whoever. Get him back in, look after him with maybe another unranked opponent and give him a full camp as well. Christian Rodriguez versus Cameron Saaiman.
Christian Rodriguez.
Up at 145. Give him Paul Hughes.
Done. Easy. Done. No problem whatsoever. Cameron Saaiman. Jesus.
Let's match him up with 2 Irish lads. Caelan Loughran next.
No. God, no. What a horrendous stylistic matchup for Cameron Saaiman that is.
They both wanted, it seems. There's a little bit of pushback on online. Yeah, like Caelan Loughran has been calling that out. Good old Cameron Saaiman chipped back at Caelan Loughran when he lost. I mean, there's a backstory there. It doesn't make any sense for me if Cameron Saaiman, and Caelan Loughran even spoke to Andy about it he even spoke with Andy at Cage Warriors this weekend, said that if Saaiman did lose, obviously he spoke before the card happened, it makes more sense. Obviously, you're not going to give Cameron Saaiman Caelan Loughran based off a win, but both of them are coming off losses now. I think it makes a little bit more sense. And
fair enough.
You don't like that style? You don't like that stylistic matchup for Saaiman at all, no?
No.
Yeah.
Cameron Saaiman leaves his chin out. Caelan hits really, really hard. And I think Caelan has better grappling than what we saw in his last fight, given the incredible skill difference in what Caelan was fighting from an experience level. And I think Caelan, what is he, 25, 26? He has more maturity in his game than Cameron Saaiman does. Yeah, Jesus, I'm sold. Fair enough. Fuck it, let's do it. Let's book it. Book it
Yeah,
right.
let's see. I mean, I like Kalen in that fight too. I mean, a little bit of history gets the juices flowing a little bit between the two of them. They're chipping away at one another. So, yeah, let's see what happens. I don't know if it will or not, but yeah, it'd be interesting to see if it does. You know, for sure that, Cameron Saaiman is going to get a guy that will make weight.
Yep.
And that is going to help things as well. Okay, let's really rattle through the rest. Come Darren Elkins, who would you like to see next for him?
Josh Colibau.
Josh Colibau. I like it. Tainara Lisboa.
Melissa Dixon.
Yes, both on the same card. Answers 2 fights with the one. Terrance McKinney.
Goram Kutateladze.
Yes, that is a spicy one. All right. Chris Gutierrez.
Don't care. No, I think for Chris Gutierrez, I know Rob Font's got a matchup, but I really want to see that one. I really want to see Chris Gutierrez, Rob Font. Like, just from a stylist perspective, I know that the matches don't line up, but that's the fight I want.
Yep, no problem. I'm not going to argue with that. And Emily Ducote, what would you like to see for her next?
Anyone, frankly. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. Who do we put Emily Ducote in with?
She seems to always just land in these fucking start off fights on a card as well. Like, and it's unfortunate. Like, every time I want to say every time I've seen her compete on a card, she's always been the first fight of the night. So you can almost get forgotten about there. So, she deserves maybe a little bit of a push up, obviously, in the rankings and stuff like that. But
all right, the fighter, let's do Yasmin Lucindo.
Yes, let's do it. Perfect. And that's it. That's a wrap for this UFC fight night card in the Apex again. Not even going to go for a roundup, Harry. We're just going to call it after that. I did say I would mention the performance bonuses. Obviously, fight of the night went to Sodiq Yusuff versus Edson Barboza. Performance of the night arguably went to Jonathan Martinez versus Adrian Yanez, and another performance of the night for Michel Pereira in his knockout win over Andre Petroski. Fair play to all of them. And we shall move on to the next one, which is a big one, UFC 294. We'll do your preview show a little bit later on this week. You can catch us. The severe spotlight shone on Paul Hughes this week. We won't stop. The guys covered that quite well on the big podcast. But if you want to see and read Harry's breakdown, head over to SevereMMA.com and check out that. Until the next time, we'll be back for the 294 preview, and we will be back for the balance breakdown next week to look at that card in great detail. Until then, take care. At BJJ_Harry Powell, at IO'Neill MMA. Take care, folks.